What is going on YouTube? I am Lamont at large. Today we are in Baltimore, Maryland, and we're going to talk about the very curious history of the Ouija board. The facts about the Ouija board and how it came to be and what we know of it as today as almost a child's game, except many people swear up and down that the Ouija board in fact is real, and a lot of people do stay away from it just because of the demonic nature that reportedly it brings in evil spirits and demons. I guess at the end of the day, the opinion is up to you on what you think about it. This right here is the George Washington Memorial. He is not buried there. It's just a memorial that they made. A very old church right there. So let's talk about the history of the Ouija board. Now, the Ouija board, or back in the old days, commonly referred to as the talking board, has been around for a few hundred years. Now, if you want to go into the early 18th century, back in those days, you had a lot of people dying at a very young age. You had people dying from war, you had people dying from poverty, you had people dying from diseases. And of course, in those days, it was a very spiritual time in the country, and people wanted answers. Why did my son have to die? My son was only 9 years old. He died of some disease that we don't even know what it was. My mother died, she was 23. She just wasted away. People wanted answers. And oftentimes they would contact with psychic mediums, spiritual advisors, and they would hire these people to be able to communicate with the dead and try to get a hold of their husbands, their wives, their sons, their daughters, their grandmothers, so forth and so on. And a lot of times rich people would often just hire them, get a bunch of booze together and just drink all night and have a good time. Now, the original talking boards were not more talking boards. Basically what you would do is you would hire a psychic. You would invite them over, and basically they would write a letter or a number one at a time, and they would wait for some kind of a sign, A, B. So you're gonna go ahead and ask a question: are you with us tonight? And it was a very, very arduous, long process, which is why you bring in the alcohol, and then they would usually just turn it to a party. So later on, and there really is no history of who actually invented it, but they developed what was then called a talking board. It would be the alphabet A through Z and all of the numbers 0 through 9. And then they would put the little glass part over the letter, and then supposedly the spirit would spell out the answer of whatever question the spirit, psychic or medium or whatever, would ask the spirit that they were trying to get a hold of. Now, during those times, the talking board became very, very, very popular, and some felt in the Baltimore area that there was quite a bit of money to be made by mass producing these talking boards. Now, enter OUIJA Bond with about 4 or 5 of his friends who got together and wanted to make some money producing these Ouija boards throughout the nation and possibly the world. And let's talk a little bit about what happened there. So OUIJA Bond, who was an inventor and a lawyer, I believe he invented either the steam boiler or he improved on the invention of the steam boiler. Him and his friend Charles Kennard and about 3 or 4 of their friends, they got together and said, okay, hey, look, let's patent this. Let's make the talking board ours. We would have to, give it a name. We gotta change it slightly so we can get the patent for it. And just by coincidence, Elijah's stepsister was a psychic medium, and her name was Helen Peters. So they went to her one night, which is this former residence, that's where she used to live. And they asked her, hey, Helen, we need a name for our talking board that we're going to mass produce. So they sit and they ask the talking board, hey, what should we call our new quote unquote invention, even though it's already been invented? And the story goes that the talking board spelled out the word Ouija. And this, of course, this building right here is the birthplace of the Ouija board. And I mean, there's a few different theories on how the name came to be. But if you go inside this 7-Eleven, there is a plaque commemorating this place being the birthplace of the actual Ouija board. This is where the story gets a little bit funny or gets a little bit dicey, and it's going to be up to you whether you want to believe it or not. But after they get the name for their talking board, now it's called the Ouija board, they make some slight improvements on it. They just can't patent something that already exists. So they sit around designing this. They finally get a rough draft together. Now it's time to go to the patent office and patent our brand new invention. So Bond and a couple of his associates go to the patent office and say, hey, listen, we want to patent our Ouija board. And I'm sure the patent officer says, well, this is a talking board. No, this is a Ouija board. This is not a talking board. We made several improvements. Shows them what they're talking about. And back in those days, I'm pretty sure it goes the same now, but to get a patent on an invention, well, the invention has to actually work. You can't just patent a box and say this is a time traveling device. You got to show me that it works, my friend. So they said, no, the Ouija board works. You could talk to the spirits, of course. So they say, okay, the patent officer says, if this Ouija board works, ask it what my last name is. And the story goes that the Ouija board spelled out his name, and he says, okay, this works. Here's your patent. Or they could have slid him $5,000, and he's like, oh yeah, that's my name. My name is $5,000. Who knows how that story transpired, but nonetheless, they got the patent to their Ouija board. So a couple years into them manufacturing this Ouija board, a man by the name of William Fuld, who was, I guess you can call him a venture capitalist and an inventor and a businessman who was originally from Baltimore, he approaches the guys and sees that they're selling a lot of Ouija boards, but they're not selling as many as he thinks they should. So he approaches the men and says, hey, I'd like to buy into your company, and I got several different manufacturing places of establishment, and I can produce a lot more Ouija boards. And so William Fuld, he joins their group, and this guy's a multi-millionaire, and they start kicking out massive amounts of Ouija boards. At about, I want to say about 8 years later, he practically bought everybody out of their company, and he renamed his company the Ouija Novelty Company, I believe. And this is 1310 North Central Avenue. This was the location of one of his 7 manufacturing warehouses in Baltimore where he produced the Ouija board. And he is often considered the inventor or the father of the Ouija board, because if it wasn't for William Fuld, the Ouija board wouldn't have hit as many households around the country or around the world without him just wanting to make money. And a few years later after that, I believe in about 1919 or 1920, he wanted to buy a bigger building, a bigger warehouse to manufacture the Ouija boards. So he bought a place over off of Lamont Avenue. I know it's a weird coincidence, near Federal Ave. But yeah, they knocked down this place. This was one of his businesses. It later became a funeral home. And after that, they knocked it down. I'm not really sure what they're building. I'm not even sure why they're looking at me across the street. They're probably wondering why I'm holding this weird thing and filming them. So anyways, let's take another location. We're gonna go visit William Fuld's warehouse a couple miles away. We're gonna talk about his weird way in which he died. So currently we are at the 1500 block of North Central. Probably not the best of neighborhood, as I've been to quite a few. But this is the site of William Fuld's manufacturing warehouse. This is where he combined all of the 7 different locations into one big building right here. And other than the Ouija board and another board that he invented called the Oracle board, he basically manufactured like wooden toys, croquet sets for children, and he actually invented a portable pool table because, you know, back in those days, if somebody wanted to play pool, they didn't have a large room in which to put a pool table, nor do they have that kind of money. And this is the site of William Fold's death. So in February of 1927, they were putting a flagpole up on top of this roof right here, and he accidentally lost his footing, or the flagpole fell. So William fell from all the way up there right down to the ground. That's a 3-story fall. Now, that's not what actually killed him. I mean, that is what led to his death. So when the ambulance came to get him, they transported him to the hospital, and he died on the way to that hospital. Apparently, he had a broken rib, and the rib pierced his heart. A very strange manner of which to die, if I do say so myself. And here we are at the Greenmount Cemetery here in Baltimore, Maryland. And this here is the final resting place of one OUIJA Bond. Many of you guys out there might think that he is the original inventor of the Ouija board. However, he is just but one that had many a hand in the creation and distribution of the game. Some people will call it more than a game. When Elijah died, originally his grave was unmarked, and it was very, very difficult to find because he died a very long time ago, practically 100 years ago, and the cemetery records weren't kept very well. But however, they were able to find his exact grave location, and then they got together, and through the donation of individuals here in the city, they got him this cool stone. There we are. Now we got one more final place to visit before we conclude the vlog. Our final stop of the tour. This is the Cedar Hill Cemetery, about 9 miles down the road from the Greenmount Cemetery, and this here is the grave of one godfather of the Ouija board, William Fold. July 24th, 1870 to February 24th, 1927. This is the man who was responsible for mass producing the Ouija board, and he is the reason why more than likely you have heard of the Ouija board, and that you might have one either in your home or a friend of yours does. Some call it a game. Some call it a tool of the devil, talking to spirits. Some just say it's nothing but a piece of cardboard with some letters and numbers on it. Who knows? But at the end of the day, a very curious story, to say the least. And you know, people do swear that the Ouija board is it's just more than a phenomenon. It's a real instrument that you use to contact the dead. So who knows? At the end of the day, I've never used a Ouija board, and I do not plan on doing so. Anyways, rest in peace to the Fold family. I'm gonna hit the road. The storm is coming, guys. I gotta get out of here, beat the rain to New Jersey. All right, guys, see you on the next vlog. Catch up with y'all later. Peace out.